Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face, my card making space, and another STAMPtember exclusive video. Throughout the month of September, Simon Says Stamp is partnering with a bunch of other crafty brands for the biggest party of the year, STAMPtember. All of these sets that they are releasing that are collaborations with these brands are limited edition and exclusive to Simon Says Stamp. They're one and done. When they sell out, they are no longer restocked. However, every single brand has wonderful product lines, and I have been linking to each of those product lines with each of my collab videos. Today's video is with Concord 9th. They have a massive amount of amazing products. So, as always, I'll have a link to the brand, I'll have a link to the collab sets, and links to everything else I used in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keeps the channel going. Let's get into making these cards. So these are fairly quick and easy cards to make, for the most part. The collaboration set from Concord 9th and Simon Says Stamp is called Friendly Florals, and it is a layering set. Like there's these two large clusters, I'll call them. They build an oval, which if you've watched enough of my content, you know I struggle with oval shapes. I struggle. These lined up great. I just made it more difficult because I wanted to stamp a background. So I took panels of A2 white cardstock and I put them in my MISTI. I had removed the grip mat because I stamped the thank you text background from Simon Says Stamp, which is a red rubber on cling foam stamp. And I just used like a piece of washi tape to hold the piece of cardstock in place. And I inked up the stamp with Concord 9th Pebble ink, just a really light gray ink. And I even used a blending brush just to soften it just a little bit more before stamping it. And then I lined up the floral cluster. I don't know what you're supposed to call this. Concord 9th has a lot of different like building sets, and if you are familiar with them, you'll know like their turnabout stamps. I've done videos in the past using those. This is not that. This is just you stamp it and then you layer up the next stamp and that's it. Whereas like the turnabouts, you have to like rotate them and you build these fun patterns and things like that. This one is just very simple. You've got these florals, which with the first one, that first color was Wildberry from Concord 9th, and I had stamped it onto the background, and then without re-inking it, I stamped it onto what will be the inside of my card, so I got the second generation, and I did it a second time on the second panel, this time using Rainforest ink, which I managed to get on my fingers, smeared it all over the place. I just removed that with a sand eraser. So, inking up the stamp, and then without re-inking the stamp to get the second generation, so it's lighter. So the insides of my cards will have the pattern, but it'll be slightly lighter, so it's a little easier to write over with a pen. And then the second stamp does all the greenery. And the minute you stamp it, it's like, there's the oval, like right there. Love it. So the greenery I inked up and stamped with Grasshopper ink, and I did the same thing. I inked it up, stamped it onto the main panel, and then without re-inking it, stamped it onto the inside of the card. And then for my main images, I took one of the Spellbinders mirrored arch labels, wafer dies, and die cut those backgrounds. And then decided to take some Concord 9th cardstock, and I'm going to run this through the Simon Says Stamp. Is it thread? I always forget. It's thread plaid. I think that's what it's called. I've already put the folder away, but I'll have it linked. I didn't mist the cardstock that I embossed this time. With this embossing folder, it's not super deep. The folder itself is the same thickness as Simon's 3D embossing folders, but the actual pattern isn't super deep, so I'm finding I don't need to mist it. With more detail, a lot of depth in the folder, design, etc. That's why I mist the cardstock with a little bit of water. It just helps soften the paper fibers to get a better impression. And you can do it with the lighter impression ones too. I just didn't. So after I'd embossed the panels of cardstock, I just added some gray baker's twine from my stash. Wrapped that around, tied it in a bow, and then I put some Big Momma foam tape on the back of these panels so that I can pop them up again with just a little bit of dimension, not a ton of bulk. So put the foam tape on the back of these, pop these into place, And then once I've got these in place, I'm going to add splatter, of course. So I put these into my splat box, and I'm using my Gansai Tambi Starry colors. This time I'm using the white gold as it's labeled, which closest to silver. So put a little bit of water into the pan, worked it up really well with my fan brush, and then I added a nice healthy dose of splatter to both of these card fronts. And then I'm going to set these aside to dry. And while they're drying, I'm going to heat emboss one of the sentiments from this set. And the set has many sentiments because it's a 6x8 stamp set. It has some individual florals and then many sentiments to choose from. So I chose the Thinking of You sentiment, and I lined it up on the same cardstocks I'm using for the backgrounds, and using my anti-static powder tool. So that keeps the embossing powder from clinging to anything other than the stamped image. And then stamping the sentiment onto those cardstocks with clear embossing ink. And then I'm using Simon's Detail Silver embossing powder. So poured that over, tapped off the excess, melted that with my heat tool. Once these are smooth and melted, I'm going to use my microfiber cloth to wipe away that excess anti-static powder. And then I'm going to die cut these sentiments with a smaller mirrored arch label wafer die. So get the wafer die lined up, and then I'm going to run those through and die cut them. And then on the insides of my cards, I'm going to stamp another sentiment from the set using the same color ink I use for the florals. So for this one, I use the Rainforest ink, just full strength. And then for the other card, I used the Wildberry ink. So wiped off the stamp, stuck the inside of the card in there, stamped it. Inside they're done. Then I can adhere the card fronts to the card base. I use just craft tacky glue for that. Got that adhered into place. And then the sentiments I also put Big Momma foam tape on the back of, just again, build up that little bit of dimension. So got those popped into place. And then my final little bit of embellishment is some Simon Says Stamp Starshine sequins. So sprinkled those throughout both of these cards. And then once I'm kind of happy with where they're placed, I can adhere them into place with dabs of craft tacky glue. Pro tip, when you're moving your cards around and you haven't adhered everything, maybe don't tilt them. This one was fine. It was when I grabbed the other one. I literally knocked off all the sequins. I was like, good job, dude. Just good job. But adhered them, let the glue dry. The cards are complete. We're good. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below. And yeah, you can just expand that. Check it out if you're interested. As always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to hang out with me and watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It genuinely helps. It deals with the algorithms and our robot overlords. It just tells me you like what you see, and I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.